Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Metabolism and Menopause podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I am your host and CEO of Vitality OET. We are a women's nutrition, health, and fitness company that focuses predominantly on women's hormones, particularly as they start going through perimenopause and onwards. We know that there are so many changes in this time of your life, whether it be hot flashes and night sweats, irritability and brain fog, or weight gain around the middle that seems to have come out of absolutely nowhere. So of course, you go back to your tried and true methods of cutting calories, cutting carbs, doing a ton of exercise, yet nothing seems to be working this time. Maybe the scale is moving in the wrong direction, despite you not changing anything and working really hard. Maybe you're left feeling super exhausted and feeling really frustrated and moody and not like yourself. And of course, that leaves you feeling hopeless. But we know now that your body is inherently different than when it was prior to you experiencing these hormonal symptoms. So our mission here at Vitality is to help you really understand how your body changes in this time of your life so you can live a life full of vitality, reach your health and fitness goals, feel at home and in control of your body again, and really understand how to take care of this new body of yours. So today what I want to talk about is progesterone and progestin, because we know that during perimenopause and menopause, progesterone is going to start going down. This is a very common hormonal symptom that I see in a lot of women. This is something that I struggled with personally for a very long time. And progestin, whether that's coming from birth control or hormone replacement therapy or whatever it isn't the same as progesterone. And there are certain things that you should be made aware of because I think it really is important to understand how all these things actually function in your body. But before I really jump into that, I do want to say that we are doing our first ever weight loss challenge ever that Vitality has ever done. We have been thinking about doing this for a very long time. We wanted to make sure that we were doing it appropriately and in a way that you actually learn a lot during the process, that you learn how to apply these principles as well, not just like follow blindly, and really get to understand how to get your body responding again, and provide you with some really invaluable resources. So that can be like we have a hormone grocery list. So for depending on different hormonal symptoms you might be having, different groceries that you could be getting for that. We have a meal planner in there, and a ton of other things. It's 4 weeks. We're focusing on reducing your inflammation, really getting your energy up, because this is a very common theme that we're seeing in a lot of women right now, and really accelerate that weight loss process for you. We're going to have daily challenges, different workout programs to choose from. I'm doing coaching calls twice per week. We're going to provide you with a supplement guide, a nutrition plan, a grocery list, and a whole lot more. A lot of things that we have never actually given in any sort of challenge that we've done before, specifically a meal plan as well, which we're very excited for. And the best part is that you don't have to track calories if you don't want to. Can tracking calories and macros accelerate this process for you? Absolutely, but it is not necessary in order for you to get results. This is going to be running for the month of February. It's 4 weeks long. If you want more information on that, just head to the show notes. There will be a link there for you. But we're really excited. We have been planning this for a very, very long time because we wanted to do it right. We didn't want this to be something that you just do, you lose some weight and gain it back. We wanted it to be realistic. We wanted you to learn. So it took a lot of planning things appropriately to make sure that this is something that you could actually see yourself doing long-term, that you enjoy, that you learn. We're not about the extreme aggressive approach and yo-yoing. We wanted to really see how we could accelerate things. We've been trying things with clients as well, to really see what would be the best bang for your buck kind of thing in order of effort. So back to progesterone. Here we go. So again, like I said, we talk about progesterone a lot. If you have been in our Facebook group, if you have been listening to the podcast for any certain number of times, you know that we talk about progesterone quite often. It's a really great hormone, but you might or might not have heard about progestin, that artificial form of progesterone. And a lot of people think that the two are just interchangeable, but they actually are not. They're very different. So I want to go over the differences between the two of today, and really help you understand the way they both work in our body and why you might be struggling. So first of all, the first important part to really dive into is, what is progesterone? Okay, it's a hormone that naturally occurs in our body. It belongs to a group of steroid hormones called progestins, and it is made in the women's bodies in varying amounts and in men's as well. Progesterone refers only to the specific hormone that is made by the corpus luteum in our bodies, okay? Progesterone levels are typically going to peak around day 21 of our menstrual cycle. In healthy menstrual cycles, progesterone surges post-ovulation and is really in charge of the second half of our menstrual cycle, okay? That helps your body prepare for a potential embryo from a fertilized egg. If an egg is fertilized, then the body is going to produce even more progesterone to support the embryo and the fetus as it grows. When we are not menstruating anymore, progesterone is made in small amounts in our ovaries, but as well as our adrenal glands. So if you remember a couple of weeks back, I talked about testosterone. Testosterone ends up being produced in the adrenals. Progesterone also is produced in our adrenals. So keep that little nugget tucked back there for later, because I bet you can know what I'm going to talk about later for sure. So that's progesterone. It's a great hormone. It's what makes us feel calm and cool and collected and just grounded and nice. So if you don't feel those ways, progesterone is probably low for you. It was low for me for a very long time. So what is progestin then, if it's not progesterone? Well, it was created in the 1950s. It's a synthetic form, man-made to mimic the effects of progesterone in our body. Progestin has a slightly different chemical compound than progesterone, and it is the most commonly used steroid drug, believe it or not. And it's being used in many oral contraceptive pills and implants, as well as the Mirena IUD, the morning after pill, and some menopause treatments. So there are bioidentical forms, which are different from progestins, and they are typically synthesized from plant chemicals called digestins, which is found in actually wild yams, which is a cool tidbit. But synthetic progestins, not bioidentical forms, actually decrease your natural levels of progesterone and can even suppress your body's natural production of progesterone. So when you finish with the treatment, especially if it's a progestin-based birth control, for example, you will have low levels of progesterone, which lead to symptoms like headaches, sleep disturbances, acne, weight fluctuations, mood swings, vaginal dryness, and the list goes on and on and on. And that was me. I was on birth control for a very long time. I was on the shot, and I was on a Mirena IUD for a long time. So my body literally hadn't produced its own progesterone in, I'm saying decades, you guys. Like it was a very, very long time. So I was having migraines. I was having headaches, sleep issues, tons of acne, weight fluctuations, mood swings. I just didn't feel like myself, like ever. I always felt off. And I also had PCOS. So I had high androgens, which were leading to a bunch of issues. I was a hormonal disaster, believe it or not. Like my progesterone levels when I got tested were way lower than where they should be by like a lot. And I'll go into a little bit more into detail of that afterwards. So let's talk about what progesterone does for us. Because now that we know that progestins can actually decrease progesterone in our body, what does progesterone actually do for us? It is known as a pregnancy hormone since it is needed to prepare our body for conception. It is needed in maintaining a pregnancy and regulating our menstrual cycle. But it also plays a role in sexual desire, and it's really known as our chill hormone, okay? Because the better our progesterone levels are, the less anxious we are, the fewer mood swings that we experience. We don't feel stress to the same amount. Things kind of roll off our back a little bit more. So the biggest thing that is the biggest thing too about progesterone is that it counterbalances estrogen. It really keeps it in check because estrogen can be very dramatic, like a very dramatic drama queen. That's how estrogen is. And progesterone's kind of the girl that's like, whoa, okay, like let's take a look at things a little bit more rationally here. Like let's pay it, like just chill, relax, we're good. So it's almost like a yin and yang kind of situation there. Okay. So progesterone, what it does is it thins your uterine lining and estrogen thickens it. So they counteract each other, right? They're opposites that way. Progesterone really helps to prevent breast cancer, and estrogen can actually promote the growth of breast cancer. Progesterone can boost our thyroid hormone, while too much estrogen can actually slow down thyroid hormone production. So when we have healthy levels of progesterone, we can feel like we are experiencing less inflammation. We can build more muscle. It helps really maintain our bones and maintain that healthy bone mass so we're not dealing with the osteoporosis and osteopenia that we start seeing when we age. It helps promote better sleep, which a lot of us are really wanting. It's protective of heart disease. It helps use fat for energy. So progesterone's very important in metabolism that way. And it protects our cortisone production. It helps with our appetite with fat storage. It helps calm our nervous system, making it significantly easier to cope with stress. So progesterone really, really just helps everything just calm down, okay? Because it converts a neurosteroid, which acts kind of like GABA in our brains, and GABA is a neurotransmitter that promotes relaxation and sleep. So if your progesterone levels are low, then you can really see more inflammation, struggling to put on muscle mass, poor bone health, our sleep goes to crap. We start seeing instances of heart disease. We start accumulating belly fat. We just feel super jacked up and stressed out and anxious and depressed and moody, and we have like more irritability. So low progesterone is a huge, huge issue, but then we're taking progestin, which still doesn't help with progesterone production. Okay, they're not the same. So progesterone production is directly related to high stress and cortisol. Because remember when I said that progesterone is also produced in the adrenals, it's produced by our ovaries, but then once we hit past our what do you call it? Fertility prime, right? Like we don't start to produce as much from our ovaries anymore. That kind of starts to die off. So then what we see is that our progesterone production is predominantly in the adrenals. So when we are in a time of high stress, our body prioritizes cortisol production from the adrenals instead of progesterone. In fact, when we have chronic stress, which let's face it, most of us do, I think I talk about this every single day, we set ourselves up for something called HPA axis dysfunction. And this really just ramps up the norepinephrine and epinephrine response in our system. That's going to increase our cortisol production and decrease progesterone, which in high times of stress, we want that chill hormone. It helps keep us relaxed, right? We're not as crazy and feeling out of control and moody and wanting to smother our partner with a pillow because they're snoring at nighttime and you can't sleep because your progesterone is low. So this is where we need to be aware also that when cortisol levels are high, it takes that precursor, what we need in order to build progesterone, it takes it away and gives it to cortisol production. So then we literally cannot produce progesterone in times of high stress. It's just not possible. And interestingly, sometimes anxiety originates from this HPA axis dysfunction that we're experiencing. And it can also lead to those hormonal imbalances that we talk about all the time. And then we start seeing more inflammation, more gut imbalances, and a lack of progesterone. And all those things really work together to increase our anxiety response, which is not a good time, right? Like we don't like that feeling. It's not a good feeling. So we talked about progestins and how they are man-made and made to be progesterone-like. But one of the biggest things that happens is that they can actually cause anxiety due to nutrient depletion of a specific few key nutrients like copper, EPA, DHA, folate, magnesium, B vitamins, and zinc, just to name a few. So not only do progestins cause our body to stop producing progesterone altogether, they don't convert things the way they're supposed to, which can lead to deficiencies that lead to more anxiety and mood disorders. So this is why we always encourage most women to be taking magnesium biglycinate at nighttime and taking their vitamin B complex during the morning, because we tend to be super depleted of these things when we are on progestins. And a lot of women are on progestins for hormonal symptoms, or they're on it for birth control, and that's going to cause a lot of problems. Okay, so we need to be really aware of these things. When we have low levels of progesterone, we might have things like weight gain, moodiness, depression, feeling exhausted, irregular periods, anxiety, headaches, symptoms of PMS like breast tenderness, bloating, and mood swings, fertility struggles, and progesterone levels vary throughout your lifespan. Again, being higher in the second half of your menstrual cycle, lower in that first half. But as we age, we should also see a slow decrease in our progesterone levels until there's a minimal amount being produced and our adrenal glands really take over from there. But that isn't always the case in perimenopause and menopause. Since our progesterone levels are intricately tied to our cortisol levels, what we often see is lower levels of progesterone than we should. And we start feeling symptoms too, especially in comparison when estrogen starts doing all these crazy levels and fluctuating. Progesterone isn't there to keep things in check, making those symptoms significantly worse. And we should see a slow decline of progesterone over time. For some women, we just see it tank because we're in this high stress state of go, 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 not eating enough food, not eating enough carbs, doing crazy amounts of exercise, not sleeping. We're skipping meals. We are constantly on the rush and taking care of everybody else. And then your progesterone goes to crap and then you feel like hot garbage. Okay? And we need to be aware that synthetic progestins work similarly in the body as progesterone does, or so it's been told to us anyways, right? They have some of the same effects of progesterone, but they also have many opposite effects, which people do not talk about and you need to be aware of. So progestins are used in birth control pills and can be used to treat irregular menstrual cycles, because that's what people do, right? They say, oh, your cycle isn't regular, let's just pop you on birth control, instead of being like, why is your cycle irregular? What is going on here? That's important to be aware of because you could be making things worse and your body stops producing progesterone. And at 16, 17, 18, your 20s, your body should be producing progesterone. That is a problem. Okay. Sometimes they're in some cancers related to hormones, so they'll use progestins to help with that. They can be used in alleviating symptoms of menopause, slowing bone loss. They can be used as part of fertility treatments. Progesterone comes in pills and patches and creams and injections and suppository forms, but there is some research that shows there could be several risks in taking progestins for menopausal symptom management, such as blood clots. You can have high blood pressure, hair loss. They can be androgen or testosterone-like. So when you look at them through a microscope, the chemical breakdown are a lot closer to androgens. They can cause anxiety or depression. Some people say they go on progestin and they feel absolutely freaking insane. They can increase your risk of breast cancer and heart problems, but all this really depends on your personal level of risk. And another thing is that we don't get a breakdown of what we need to in our body when we have those progestins. So we don't have that calming feeling from the GABA in our brain, which leads to, again, more anxiety and poor sleep quality that is evident. That synthetic progesterones can make that HPA axis dysfunction worse. So even though there's some things that it can help with in terms of menopausal symptoms, it can also make a lot of things worse. So again, on the flip side, progesterone can improve your cardiovascular health, which progestins can make worse. Can stimulate your hair growth, which progestins do not. They have anti-androgenic properties, whereas progestins are pro-androgenic. It's great for your mood, your sleep, improves inflammation levels, regulates your immune functions. You're not getting sick as often, supports a healthy thyroid, supports your healthy brain function, and even help reduce the risk of breast cancers, whereas progestins are the opposite of all that. But nobody talks about this, and that's a problem. So there are two ways to get real natural progesterone. The first is to make it yourself, and we'll talk about ways to do that in just a minute. Or you can take oral micronized progesterone capsule. These are bioidentical progesterone, not progestin. Okay. They can also be available in a cream, compounded progesterone capsules, or products such as Prometrium, or Teva. And those are brands of things. Okay. So The only way to make progesterone is through a healthy menstrual cycle and luteal phase. And this is approximately 10 to 14 days between ovulation and menstruation. And it is named after the corpus luteum, which is a temporary ovarian cyst that forms after an egg is released. Having a healthy corpus luteum is the only way to make progesterone. So like I mentioned before, during menopause, we make much smaller levels of progesterone. We still manufacture it in the ovaries as well as the adrenal glands, although the adrenal glands are almost exclusively the source for progesterone production, as well as a source of estrogen production once we go through perimenopause and menopause. So a lot of you are like, oh man, Steph, this is just like such bad news. It explains a lot, but like no one told me this before. I'm frustrated and I feel poorly. So I want to talk over the signs of a progesterone deficiency that you might be able to identify in yourself, and then talk about what you can do to help have healthy progesterone levels to really maximize that as best as you can. So what are the signs of progesterone deficiency? During normal menstrual cycles, our progesterone works, like I said, in opposition to estrogen. They balance each other out. So estrogen dominates or rises in that first stage of the menstrual cycle to help develop the egg. And the second phase, progesterone dominates and takes care of preparing the body for pregnancy until we have that period. Okay, so they take turns kind of being in control here. And some things that can happen if we have progesterone deficiency would be a short luteal phase or no luteal phase at all. So really short cycles and no ovulation. This was me for an incredibly long time. Low temperatures in the luteal phase because your progesterone is actually responsible for raising your body temperature. And here is where we have an issue with thyroid function being lower as well. We might see fertile mucus in the luteal phase because progesterone really dries that up for us. You might see spotting in the luteal phase because progesterone really helps hold the uterine lining. And now as we enter perimenopause and the ovaries are less responsive and our estrogen and progesterone levels really fluctuate, it creates less predictable menstrual cycles and even cycles where you might not even ovulate at all, which means that progesterone levels are going to be low because ovulation is needed to produce healthy progesterone levels. So symptoms can be heavier bleeding with periods, spotting in between and around periods, changes in cycle length and timing, vaginal dryness. And an interesting fact is that most menopause symptoms are actually caused by the decline in progesterone, which is needed to balance that with estrogen, which makes estrogen more dominant, even though it might be low because we don't have progesterone to balance it out. And then we start experiencing even more symptoms on top of that you start having. So what are some things that you can really do to help provide a healthy progesterone levels in your body during perimenopause and menopause? We really want to support as best as we can. So the first is Vitex or chasteberry. It's a medication prepared from the berries of a large Mediterranean tree. It helps promote ovulation by protecting your hypothalamus from stress so that cortisol doesn't go up so that you can produce progesterone. And it produces your pituitary gland from making too much prolactin. It also has opiate-like constituents that work to calm your nervous system. So for best results, take that in the morning before breakfast, as that is when your pituitary gland is going to be most receptive to receiving that. And it is usually recommended to pulse this supplement and stop it for about 5 days out of every month. So 5 days before you start your period. And if you don't have any period at all, then take it 25 days and then off for 5 days. If you have PCOS, then talk to someone before taking Vitex because it can actually make things a little bit worse for women with PCOS. So that was something that I was not able to do. The next one is making sure, of course, that you were well nourished with enough calories, with enough protein, carbs, and fat. Because if you're not eating enough food, that is going to be a stress on your body. When cortisol goes up, we cannot produce progesterone. So eating enough food to combat that is going to be key. Okay, so this is something that I had to do. Making sure that you have adequate iodine and zinc intake, as those micronutrients really help with healthy progesterone production. Make sure that you are correcting any underlying inflammation issues that you might have with your gut. So maybe there's some issues with gluten that you might have, or dairy or histamine issues, leaky gut. Maybe there's some thyroid issues or insulin resistance. These are all things that we need to address, but that can help a lot by making sure you're eating enough, eating consistently. If you have questions about that, just message me. Again, I'm always happy to help you with this. Reducing stress is going to be super key for you because, again, as long as cortisol is high, we cannot produce progesterone. It just will not happen. So we need to figure out what is causing the biggest stress in your life. Can you remove them? Sometimes you can't, and that's okay. So we need to learn how to buffer that through proper nutrition, adjusting exercise the way that you need. So more resistance training, less HIIT type stuff, less boot camps, less Orange Theories, making sure you're taking longer rest periods. You can focus on doing your feet up on the wall, doing box breathing, meditation, journaling, anything to really get you out of that fight or flight, to bring that heart rate and breathing rate down, to just really help relax your nervous system, because 99% of women that I talk to are overstressed, overworked, underfed, underrecovered, overexercising. We don't need that, okay? We need to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to improve your cortisol levels so that you can have progesterone being produced. Eating in a relaxed environment can make a huge difference. So we're not eating on the run or not go, because then we're eating in a state where our blood flow is actually going away from our gut. So we can't digest things well, leading to more inflammation, which again, we know is an issue. Magnesium is huge. Magnesium really helps calm your nervous system. It helps with the decreasing of the stress response, but it's also needed in the production of steroid hormones like progesterone. So magnesium is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful supplement. It helps you sleep. It helps you relax. It helps you with progesterone producing pathways. Magnesium is amazing. It's affordable. I highly recommend it. I love it. Taylor uses it too. Everyone uses it. It's great for sleep and relaxation and recovery. Vitamin C, a much needed vitamin for increasing progesterone and reducing inflammation levels in the body. Taking at least 750 milligrams of vitamin C daily for 3 cycles has actually been shown to increase progesterone by 8 to 12 ng/ml. So that's really, really great. Just vitamin C. Vitamin B complex is a key vitamin in progesterone production. It's depleted when we're on progestin taking birth control. So that was something I really needed to work on. And it's really helpful in reducing symptoms of perimenopause and menopause as well. Great for improving energy, so you're not feeling as exhausted. Take it in the morning, because if you take it in the evening, it can affect your sleep. There are lots of foods that can help your body stimulate the production of progesterone, like healthy fats, beans, dark chocolate, citrus, leafy greens, avocados, salmon, shrimp, nuts, pumpkins, spinach, whole grains. Foods that are also used to help lower progesterone in the body to help balance those two out can also be very helpful. So to help with that ratio of progesterone to estrogen, you can try including bananas, cabbage, shellfish, walnuts, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, and kale. Making sure you're exercising appropriately, like I mentioned, is going to be very important. So excessive exercise can cause a higher stress response in the body, increasing your cortisol levels. So then you can't produce progesterone. So this is going to be making sure that you're not working out too much. You have the right amount of recovery, longer rest periods, focusing on building muscle, maybe tailoring down on your cardio. Everyone will be a little bit different. So again, if you need figuring out what that looks like for you, just message me and I will be more than happy to help. Seed cycling can be amazing. Coach Brittany did a little bit of a talk about this in our Facebook groups. If you want more specifics on that, head to the Facebook group, Metabolism Menopause by Vitality. So much information in there. She goes into great detail. And then, of course, taking bioidentical progesterone can help a lot. So I hope that helped. I know that's a ton of information. We do have a guide on progesterone and progestin. We talked about the foods. Those will be there as well. But if you want that guide, we did a little bit more in-depth Q&A as well in our Facebook group for this topic in particular. That was really great. So if you want to see that, just again, head to the Facebook group. You will find the guide and the live training in there as well, the webinar with the Q&A. But again, if you want that guide, just let me know. Happy to send it over. Message me on social media, however you like, because I know this is a lot of information. I know it can be confusing, especially if you're distracted when you're listening. This was more like nitty gritty of things, but I think it's really important to be aware of because sometimes people think they're going to take progestin and they're just going to feel better, and they end up feeling a lot worse, particularly with their mental health. And again, people don't talk about this enough. Doctors don't talk about this enough. I think we do a wild disservice for women and how we're feeling a lot of the time. And this is just something I am very strongly advocating for, because I didn't know any of this stuff. I was on progestin for decades, and it really messed me up. And then I had PCOS, and it made things so hard. And it took 2 years of like really honing in my nutrition and my activity levels and dealing with trauma and grief and going through all of these things to get to a place where I have healthy progesterone levels, where my hormones are good. And it's worth it, but it's a long road. But I mean, if someone had talked to me about this stuff sooner, maybe it would have been different. So this is information I encourage you to share with some younger women who might be on birth control. Share with your kids, your nieces, your friends, whoever, because I think it's very important. And again, if you want a copy of that guide, just let me know. I'm always more than happy to share that with you. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.